Hello and welcome everyone to this family-ish table talk. I'm
Good
so
afternoon.
excited to be here and to see so many of you joining us. That
Yeah.
is fantastic.
It is fantastic. And what a follow-up to the wonderful message we heard this morning from Pastor Snell. So I'm looking forward to our conversation this afternoon. What about you?
Oh, for sure, for sure. I'm Kim Roper, for those of you who don't know me, and this
I am
is
Everett Roper, and I'm proud to be married to this beautiful woman by
and
my side.
and the feeling is mutual. So glad to have all of you here. I see so many of you joining us from all over, from Brooklyn, from Atlanta, from Huntsville, from Florida, Claudette, Andrew, Kimberly Russell, Lynette Foster. I see all of you out there. Hello, hello, and welcome.
And where are we joining from?
You know, it is so awesome, guys, that you notice my shirt here, my symbol. We are actually joining you today from WinShape Retreats. I don't know how many of you put in the chat if you've heard of WinShape. It is a marriage retreat in Mount Berry, Georgia.
Mount Berry, Georgia, sponsored by the Chick-fil-A founders and owners.
The founders of Chick-fil-A, the Cathy family. They have a heart for marriage, and they are having a retreat this weekend called the God's Vision for Marriage, or Your Vision for Marriage. And it is a beautiful place, guys. If you have never heard of it, I definitely recommend that you check it out. It's such a powerful ministry that they have for marriage. So it's really perfect that we are here doing this today, because this is what it's all about.
That's right. That's right. We're learning a lot. And we've married, 26 years? So
yes.
We keep coming back to these things.
We
so
do.
We keep learning.
Always
learning.
It's about enriching. It's about enriching the relationship. And we're going to talk today about how important it is to do that, how we can keep our marriages healthy and strong. Retreats such as this is one way, then there's many others that our panelists are going to talk about today.
Conversations that we're going to have today, sermons like we heard today. You just got to, all resources, whatever is out there, you got to go for it if you want to have a healthy marriage. It's like, what they say, it's a muscle confusion, right? When you go to the gym,
you got to keep working it.
You can't work the same muscles, right? You
can't get stagnant.
That's right.
That's what it's all about. So you are in for a great conversation today. So go ahead and be a digital disciple and an Apple apostle. Share today's live and invite others to join this conversation. Definitely put your questions in the chat. What is it that you're coming to this talk, this table talk with? Like, what's going on in your marriage that you want us to address, that you want the panelists to talk about? Go ahead and be thinking about that. If you have your question already, go ahead and put it out there. And let's dig into this very important conversation. As I said, we have a great panel of guests that will be talking to us today, and we're going to introduce them to you in just a little bit. But we have to go to a break first, so we're going to do that, and then we'll be right back. And we are back.
Welcome back. Look at this.
Our fab couples.
That's right. Good afternoon. Happy Sabbath, everyone.
Hello. Happy Sabbath. Happy Sabbath.
Well, let's jump right in. We're going to introduce our panelists so we don't waste any time. We want to make sure we use every amount of time that we have available. Dr. Matthews, I don't know if you heard us say where we are. We're at excuse me. Yeah, that's exactly right. We're in WinShape, and we took a retreat here with the Matthews a couple of years ago, and we had a wonderful time. And God gave us good weather, good conversation, good people to meet. So it's just like when we were here a few years ago. But let's jump right in. Let me introduce everybody, and then we'll start our conversation. So Dr. Calvin Matthews is a native of Decatur, Alabama, and Dr. Belvia Matthews is a native of Huntsville. They both earned their doctoral degrees from Michigan State University. Dr. Calvin's degree is in college counseling, and he's a licensed professional counselor. Dr. Belvia's degree is in clinical psychology, and she's also a licensed psychologist. They're in private practice and are owners of Psychological and Counseling Associates here in Huntsville, and it's a full-service mental health facility. They're both active members of the Oakwood University Church, where Dr. Calvin is an elder and also the co-chair of the Family Life Ministries. The other half of that co-chair is his wife, Dr. Belvia. And they've been doing it for a long time, and they have done an excellent job. That's a conversation all to its own. The Matthews specialize in marriage and family counseling and have conducted marriage and family seminars nationally and internationally. They have been married for 52 long years.
Can we clap it up for that?
That's right.
Fantastic.
So they're going to tell us what to do and what not to do.
I think they know.
I think they know. And they have 4 adult children and 13 grandchildren. Welcome.
Wow. They are the senior statesmen, men and women on the call today. Yes, we bow to you. Oh, and we also have our dear friends, Choya and Chantel Wise, who have been married for 16 years. And I can't believe it's been 16 years. And they are the proud parents of 2 beautiful girls. Oh, they are so beautiful. They are owners of Aspire Counseling and Consulting Services here in Huntsville. And Choya is a licensed clinical social worker who specializes in anger management and relationship counseling. Chantel is a licensed social worker, RN, and relationship coach who specializes in identity development for women. Aspire is a Christian-based practice with the mission of building intimacy in all relationships, and their motto is with relationships. It's not about being right, but being understood. That is good.
Welcome, guys. Welcome. Looking forward to it. And we have,
last but not least,
we have a celebrity in our midst. Dr. Vandion Griffin is the executive secretary for the South Central Conference.
Yeah.
And he has also brought his bride, his beautiful wife, Kimberly, who is a senior accountant of risk management for the South Central Conference. They've been married for 22 years, and they enjoy helping couples have fun marriages with games and creative date nights. They engage couples in expressing their love toward each other in ways that go beyond words to connect hearts and desire that every couple experience unadulterated love. The Griffins have 1 amazing daughter. She's actually been on Praise Cafe a few times. She's doing an excellent job. Her name is Kaylin Griffin, and she is a sophomore at Oakwood University. Welcome, Executive Secretary and Madam Senior Accountant.
yes.
Glad to have you with us today.
Clap it up for our panelists, everybody. So glad that you all are here to share with us your wisdom, both from your professional experiences as well as your married experiences. And that's what we are counting on you, drawing on today. Let's keep it real, guys. I'm going to kick it off right from the top with a real question. So marriage is hard. Would we all agree? Marriage is hard. But, sometimes we say that and it's like, that's all it is. It's not just hard. It's great also, but it is work, right? So I'm curious to know from you all, what would you rank as the top 3 biggest issues or challenges that come with marriage? What comes to mind immediately when we talk about marriage being hard? Top 3.
I would say right off, communication.
Yes.
Communication. And I'm speaking from experience, okay?
Hey.
Of course. Yeah.
Don't get so real so fast. Hey, man, we don't have a whole lot of time to waste, so we got to get right to it.
That's right.
Yeah. And I would say right under communication, if not before communication, is selfishness.
Yeah.
I want what I want when I want it.
Come on now.
Yeah. Talk about that.
Yeah.
Anybody else?
I'll let the Matthews give number 3.
Of course, finance is always one.
And these probably overlap too, right? Like communication about finances, selfishness when it comes to finances, right? Yeah.
Yeah, I would say selfishness is the common denominator.
That's deep.
Well, I mean, you have 2 individuals that have come from their own backgrounds, their own experiences, their own sort of expectations about how life should go. and then you put them together with individuals who are probably likely very different from them, and you expect them to just click and to just sync. So I think that selfishness piece probably definitely comes from that sort of getting used to not thinking of yourself as an individual only.
So you guys chose those words for a reason. Obviously, it has crept in possibly into your marriage. Can you share with us how you have handled either one of those, Pete? How you handle those successfully or unsuccessfully in your marriage?
Well,
Give us a good example and a bad example.
yeah. Well, I would say that I have been quite successful at being selfish.
Okay.
Like I'm off the charts, you know. I'm still waiting on my awards so I can put them on my wall. But, you know, it's because you know, and some of it is not even intentional. It's unintentional. It's, you know, we just think. Well, let me not say we. I just think about me, and what it is that I want, and what it is that I want, where I want to go, and how I want to spend some money, and how I, you know, and sometimes if I go in that route unchecked, it becomes really, really, really bad, like to the point where I'm not even aware of it, and it's when Kim checks me, hallelujah, that I realize I've been thinking more about me than about we.
Yes.
And what's going to be best for us. Like, did I have to buy those pair of J's, or should I have had a conversation? Come on, Joy. Should I have had a conversation that said we don't need J's, we need an investment. I can't get no help in here. You know?
Yes, amen.
And so I've been quite successful at being selfish. But what I do realize is, and I'll let Kim speak, is when I am intentional, when I think about Kim and not me, man. I mean, I'm kind of trending in a great direction, you know, at that point. And it makes me feel like I'm doing my part in this marriage, because I'm not thinking just about what I want to see happen, what I want to do, but it's more about what she wants to do. But if I'm not checked, I'm just telling you, naturally, I think about me and not we.
Mercy.
Yeah, so you often hear people talk about marriage being like this 50-50. People say that a lot, you know, but it's really 100. Like, I mean, we need to be giving everything. And when we do that, you know, and both partners are doing that, we actually experience those moments where we are selfless. And that's what we're going for. A very special moment just happened for us a couple of weeks, well, last week. And it was so simple. We can be so tunnel in our way of doing things. And oftentimes, Van will move the car without telling me he's moving the car, and I'm coming out to look for him. In this moment, we're leaving the hotel, and I think about the fact that he's probably moved the car because that's what he does. Right. So on my way to the car, I look at the front door and I don't see him there, which means he has not moved the car. He's actually where we left the car, you know, but it's not nature to do that. His nature is, oh, it just made more sense to move to the front. Well, I won't know that if you don't tell me. So I got to the car and I saw him still in the same spot. I was like, man, I'm so proud of you. He was like, yeah, I realized that I didn't tell you before I left the room that I was going to move the car. So that was like a moment.
It was a win.
Yeah.
Yes.
So when you're doing 100%, you're thinking about your partner and they're thinking of you. Man, that thing, when it comes together like that, it's a beautiful blend.
Come on now. That's wonderful. Well, you know, Dr. Matthews and Troy, I think you were going to say something. Let me ask Dr. Matthews a question. So we got 22 years, we got 26 years, we got 16 years. Please tell us that this selfishness thing goes away after you get to what, 40, 45, 50? Have you crossed the hurdle?
Well, I can tell you right away that it does not.
Crushed. I'm crushed.
Say that it does not. Hopefully, as the pastor has said today, is that we learn to accept some of the things that we saw in the person. We are growing. It does get better, but it's not over because, as I said before, selfishness, I think, is the common denominator to any other of the problems that we have, whether it's financial, communication, et cetera, et cetera. At the bottom of it, of the conflict, you're going to find selfishness. And one of the things that I found that was helpful to me is to try to understand, and that was Chantel had talked about communication. And the best part of that for me was to listen, because the worst thing that could happen was when she would say, "You just don't understand."
Yeah.
So I learned to listen in order to understand whether I agreed or not, and then try to enter into her perceptual world so that I would at least know where she was coming from and actually listen to it. And I might not agree, but at least I understood it. And when you understand it, you can work with it a little better.
Absolutely. One thing I also wanted to say about communication, our personalities are different.
Yeah.
And I know before we got married, we were in graduate school and we were taking all these personality inventories. And so the teacher was even telling us some things because she knew that we were, talking about getting married, some things that we need to look out. And so when you're married, you are going to have differences. You're going to have things that you're going to disagree. But one thing is that you never hit below the belt. With to a person, you know the vulnerability things about them and about their family. And so when you have your differences, you don't ever bring it up. Because if you bring it up, what you say, what you put out, you can't take back. You say something that is hurting, your spouse remembers that a month from now, 5 years from now. So I think when we talk about couples making a marriage last, what you say, you want to be very, very careful that you don't hurt the person, because you can with your tongue. The Bible talks about the tongue being as mighty as a sword. And so we have to keep that in mind. If you're putting your spouse down, then you're married to a loser. Who wants to be married to a loser? So you want to build your spouse up. I think that's very important.
That's so good, because it kind of reflects on you at that point, right? Like you're putting him down, but that reflects on your choice to be with him. Yeah.
I just wanted to say that you're not going to hurt the person on purpose. Yeah. At being a human being, you're going to hurt each other. But don't be hidden below the belt, and try to make sure it is not on purpose that I'm doing it intentionally. We'll make enough mistakes unintentionally.
Indeed. Veronica Bailey says hitting below the belt betrays trust, and that weakens the relationship, right? So that's what you have to think about. Chantel, did you want to say something, or Toya?
Well, you all asked for examples. I don't know. I'm hearing the echo, but we're gonna just keep going. But so our situation. So for me, we're talking about growing up in different households, different backgrounds, and so for me, the communication was a lack thereof on my part, because I didn't grow up in a home where you talked about anything. You had an issue, you deal with it. You don't really sit down and have round table talks about your issues. So coming to the marriage, that really hurt us, because I wasn't very expressive of my emotions, my feelings, and things like that. And then my husband was, so
too much.
Yeah, maybe a little too much, but so we would just, we would never progress in any conflicts that we had, because just the communication piece just wasn't there. And so then what happens is those issues, they just keep layering and layering and layering, because you never dealt with any of them, So for me, for us, that's what it was. And so we slid on into some counseling and got some tools up under our belts. And now We
Hey,
speak
man.
well.
You
Now,
know,
wait.
what Chantel was saying is important because, and this unselfishness thing is really important because, you know, moving into our marriage, I didn't necessarily recognize that I was selfish. And we had gotten married and like we had the ideal situation, I thought, but Chantel, she wasn't speaking up about how crazy I was. And so, you know, when you just kind of think that you're right, and then, you know, I guess she was trying to help me to understand that I wasn't, it's like you're hurting people unintentionally.
Yeah.
And I think just with the help of God, him grounding me, listening to my wife and getting to understand that, man, you really have some issues and a lot of things that you need to work on. It's not just your wife. I mean, it was so bad that she would sometimes try to express things to me and I would just put it back in her lap. When she finally brought it to my attention, I was trying not to do it, but I noticed like the conversations would just get back to and it was like uncontrollable. And I'm like, wow. I think listening to each other is a big factor.
So let's see, Angela Mosca, in marriage, both individuals have to try in some way to understand their partner. If there is an issue, seek counseling or a mediator to help.
And I want to say that because Chantel said it, and you know, I'm glad you said that. You are a counselor. You're in Troy. That's what you do, and you said that you slid into a counselor. So I know the Matthews are counselors, and I'm sure you know the pastor has done some counseling. Let's talk about that counseling piece for one moment. Is that something that you recommend for those that are struggling or going through some challenges in their marriage?
Certainly. Yeah, as we talked about before, we even recommend premarital counseling. And I know it was helpful for us. And I remember when the pastor wanted to do some premarital counseling, our attitude was, let's just go there and get this out of the way. You know, we figured he had nothing that he could tell us. But he did get our attention. And I remember some of the things he said, and it was all true. And I started making some plans because when he talked about premarital counseling, so there's the premarital counseling that we certainly recommend. And certainly when there are some issues, we certainly recommend counseling. And that's one of the problems. Sometimes you can't get two people that want to come in at the same time. There have been times when I've asked someone to come in and help their spouse who might have the problem in order to get the person in who has the problem.
Right, that's sneaky.
Pretty clever.
But yeah, I certainly would recommend counseling.
Yeah.
And, you know, Kim and Everett, I remember going to counseling with Kim, and we sitting before the counselor, and he asked a question, and man, I'm crushing. I'm talking about how amazing Kim is, and I'm just doing my thing, Choya. And so then he asked Kim a question, and she undressed me.
Oh no! Come on, Kim.
For real, you have to be for real.
That's what we were there to do. Like
Being honest.
to get help. So
Y'all didn't go over the script before.
you have to tell the doctor what's hurting, right? Like you don't go there and just be like everything's well. I mean, what did you go for?
Right.
We're not gonna leave you the same way.
Yeah, we're not doing this. We're not doing this.
I was like, man, now behold the lamb. But,
So Van, you wanted to go in there looking like everything was all right. You didn't want to admit the problem.
That's what we do, and I think that's the challenge. And after that, after she said what she said, I was like, oh, I mean, we're here to play ball. Yeah.
It was on. It was
on. You know, if you don't talk about what the real issues are, you know, and especially when you have an opportunity to have a mediator there with you to kind of make sure that you're not going below the belt, that you are being respectful, but you're being direct and you're actually dealing with whatever those issues and challenges that are, and you're being able to be understood by your partner, and your partner's understood by you. Man, it makes for a happier engagement after that time of counseling. So I highly recommend it. And even when I do counseling now, I'm sitting there with people and I was like, he's lying, she's lying. And I will let them lie to me for a little bit. And then after that, I'm like, guys, I don't do this just for fun. I mean, we're looking for people who want to be married for eternity. And the only way you're going to get there is you got to tell it like it is. And at that point, then you start seeing people really, unveiling who they are and what's going on.
So we were talking about communication and sometimes the difficulty that we have with communicating. And that kind of ties into really what we're talking about right now, which is conflict and how to handle conflict, right? How to fight fair. And I think that what we're touching on with this counseling piece is sometimes we need help in how to fight fair, right? Like we're not doing it well, or we're not doing it at all. We're running from the conflict. And so we should maybe think about the going into counseling as getting the tools that will help us to communicate better, to fight better. And let's talk about the fact that, when we say that, right, people are like, oh no, we never fight. Like we don't want to, people want to avoid that, right? Like nobody wants to have conflict. But can we talk about the fact that maybe conflict is not a bad thing?
Yeah, I really think that it's really important to understand that if we're putting our hands up that we never fight, from a therapeutic standpoint, that's a red flag for me. Because usually somebody's just getting their way all the time and somebody's not speaking. It's a combination of both. I mean, it's just not humanly possible to have two humans that have sinful humans. And that's the thing with counseling. It's not saying I don't need counselors, like saying I'm without sin. Me as a therapist saying I don't need it is like saying I'm without sin. I'm not, And so for those couples, and I love them, but they're just like, oh, we don't ever have an argument. I'm not saying you have to be yelling, but if you all don't have conflict, somebody's not happy. And sometimes this has been the function that we have learned. And so it's a norm for us. We don't even know that we have a problem. Sometimes the counseling and things like that, this is identified. And it's like, man, the freedom that's being experienced from understanding that, like, instead of unconsciously blocking things out, that when I want to speak up about something I don't like, now I can speak about it. And then my spouse is hearing me, and we're working things out.
And I'm back off of what Betty y'all said really quick. He painted one picture, and then Kim came. I think we hear that a lot in marriages. One person thinks that everything is okay, and the other person is like, no, from my viewpoint, it's not. You know what I'm saying? It's not. And so again, that comes back to that communication and not being able to actively listen to your spouse and be able to effectively communicate.
And I'd like to know, Chantel, what does everything is okay look like? Because I know, I don't know about you guys. I'll just speak for Kim and I. The devil works on Sabbath mornings, doesn't he?
What?
He's not off on Sabbath morning. So everything could be okay, and then all of a sudden it's not okay. So I don't know what okay looks like. Because every day is the same.
So I'm speaking on the standpoint, like for Troy, like he's just happy, he has a wife, she's cooking, she's cleaning, she's taking care of his physical needs,
Hallelujah.
What could be wrong in that?
So he's just like, and then here I am over here. I'm emotionally, my cup is not being filled.
That's right.
He's being tight on the dollars, won't let me spend no money.
Have your way, Chantel. Have your way.
She's telling the business.
So a lot of times, like one person's needs, because fortunately, men don't have a whole lot of needs. We're more of the emotional ones, but a lot of times we're lacking because a lot of men don't know how to, cater to us emotionally. But it's simple: respect me, cook for me, clean up my house, take care of my physical needs, and we're don't drain my bank account, and we're happy.
That's what I'm talking about.
But that's not going to sustain. That's not sustainable.
Right.
I need to move to the next question, but there was also a question about what if your spouse refuses to go to counseling? Do you all have any advice for one spouse knows they need it and the other's like, nah, we're good? What should they do?
I think, Dr. Matthews mentioned this, and I think you should go. You go by yourself as you talk about what's going on with you, a lot of times we actually do need to become aware of who we are, you know, and sometimes in marriage and as we begin to parent and all the things that we do, we kind of find ourselves being disgruntled, unhappy, and we don't really know why. So as you're talking to the counselor about yourself, you know, then there are opportunities where the therapist may say, you know, I'd love to have your spouse come in and support you, right? So that's an avenue to bring the spouse in, and they're not coming with this defense of like, you drug me here because you want to bash me. No, we're here for us, but it's under the context of I need some help.
Yes.
That's good.
You gotta make sure you don't switch and bait though. I mean, bait and switch.
Right. That's good.
Yeah.
And sometimes you might not have both people there so that you can do couple counseling, but in some ways you can do it by being a consultant to the person that you are counseling. Your spouse will not come in. We're going to work on you because you're the one here. We're going to see what changes you need to make. And then as you relate to your spouse, you can bounce things off of me, and my role will not be counseling. My role is now consultant to you as you work on the marriage. And so I'm going from counseling the person who's coming in and also being a consultant to that person as they work if the other person does not come in. And actually what you want to do, say something like, this marriage is very important to me. So they'll know why you're going to counseling. I want this to work. And so you tell them your purpose, then they will know that you're not coming in just so that they can be bashed and you can put your thing up.
Right.
And if you've gone in before, you can be letting them know that this is a safe place, because people want a safe place that they can let everything kind of hang out, and that the counseling is going to be a safe place. If we go to to get a divorce, that's when we're going to a judge. We're not going to a judge right now. I tell them up front, I'm not a judge. You're in the wrong office, and there'll be no judgment here. But if this doesn't work, then you will be going before the judge.
That's a very, very good point. And I appreciate the counseling discussion.
Yeah, one other quick point. A lot of people don't say they don't fight because they don't know how, or they have no rules for fighting. And so I say we're going to have the Geneva Convention. All these countries that's bombing each other and go at war, they have rules for war. They even have war crimes.
That's right.
At war, but killing you one way is not a crime, but doing it another way is a crime. And so kind of develop then some rules for fighting, some rules when we are in conflict, and then when they can know that we now have these rules, for now we can actually have our conflict, have our fighting without destroying each other.
Yeah.
Well, look, we've got a lot to process, and I want everyone to know that we are monitoring the chat and we see your questions. And there have been some tough questions. We understand and we can't get to them all, but let's take a break for a minute. Let's look at a quick video, and let's come back and let's talk about one of the questions. I think I saw someone ask a question about infidelity in your marriage and how do you deal with that. So.
And Dr. Matthews mentioned divorce. I think that's another one that we need to touch on a little bit. And then we're going to bring the Snells in also. So we have a lot more to come. Guys, stay by. We'll be back in a moment.
All right. Thank you.
All right,
There's
we
our pastor.
are back, and we have with us now our dear pastor and Miss Gianna, who is a force all to herself. The power couple is here. We're so glad you all are here, guys. Just for those of you who may be joining us, who may have just missed the first half, I am Kim Roper, my husband Everett, and you have tuned in to Family-ish. This is a live table talk where we are identifying God's plan for families. And today we are talking about marriage, having some hard and serious conversation about this topic, which is very important. And we have some professionals with us, Doctors Calvin and Belvia Matthews, Choya and Chantel Wise, Dr. Vandian and Kim Griffin. And as I said, we have now joining us Pastor Deblier and Mrs. Gianna Snell. So glad you all are here with us to add to this important conversation. Just to introduce you very quickly for those who may not know, Pastor and Mrs. Deblier Snell will celebrate 19 years of marriage on November 2nd. Yay, clap it up for you guys. That's awesome. Of course, Pastor Snell is the speaker director of Breath of Life Television Ministries, as well as the senior pastor of the Oakwood University Church here in Huntsville, Alabama. And Gianna, as I said, is a force to be reckoned with herself. She is the communications director of Breath of Life Ministries, a published writer, speaker, and accomplished portrait artist. Many of us have seen her beautiful work. She owns her own company, Gianna Snell Photography, loves capturing the genuine connections and expressions of her clients. She is also the founder of They That Wait Ministries, which is a support group that seeks to encourage women who are struggling with infertility, miscarriage, and pregnancy loss. I don't even know if we'll get to that today, but that is a topic all to itself. Despite their own challenges with fertility, the Snells now have 3 beautiful children, Jaden, Brooke, and Braden. So let's clap it up for the Snells who are joining us.
I'm surprised, Miss Gianna, you can be so close to our pastor. Is he still warm from this morning's sermon? Is he still a little hot?
Still hot.
You know, he's always sweating. So
Yeah.
He works hard. He works hard up there.
Preaching is blue collar work. People don't realize it's a blue collar responsibility.
That's wonderful. Pastor, we had some good conversation. I don't know if you had a chance to listen in. I don't want to put you on the spot, but I'm gonna throw this question out there because it came up a couple of times in the chat, and we watched it scroll and we captured it. Dr. Matthews, Troy and Chantel, maybe pastors, if you can help us with this infidelity question. We don't want to gloss that over. There are a lot of individuals, there are a lot of marriages that are struggling with healing after infidelity. Without going any deeper, can you just help a couple that is struggling, that is coming out or in the middle of something like that in their marriage?
All right, you want to start with us?
Sure. Why not?
Okay, well, let me just say this, and if I could just take one step back. I had a chance to listen to you guys while I was driving in the car. This is a rich dialogue, and it blessed me. So we're excited to be able to join. But if I could just kind of step back, as I was listening to you guys talk about the counseling, and there's just one thing if I could add to this, and I believe both the Griffins and the Matthews will and the Wises will agree. When we talk about going to counseling, and I'm gonna get back to your question, Dr. Roper, is I think sometimes couples put too much onus on the counselor. In other words, there is no counselor that can fix you. What counselors do is they equip you with tools.
Come on now.
And if you don't implement those tools between your counseling sessions, you're wasting your time. And one of the things I find myself at a certain point, and this is where, you know, as I've aged, I'm kind of almost willing to kind of terminate it if I feel like I want it for them more than they want it for themselves.
Yeah.
Because see, it's not about the skill of the counselor. It's about the desire of the couple. So that people who just really want it and are determined, even if the counselor is not the most qualified or most apt or most able, they'll take the little tools that have been given and they will work them in such a way that their desire kind of really moves them to a place of healing. So I just wanted to throw that in as I was listening to us, because there are times where, man, we feel like, oh man, that counselor did not help us. And there are times where we're, again, placing the responsibility where it does not belong, when it's that burden is upon us. They're equippers. But to your direct question as it relates to infidelity, now again, I think each and every situation is different. And so I think that one of the things I do want to say about infidelity, and I think we've got to kind of frame it in this context. All infidelity is, and it's crazy because like in the 2010s, like probably one of the most prolific shows was a show called Scandal, where like they tried to like glorify adultery and put a mystery and an allure around it. But all adultery is where two broken people find each other. Like there is nothing sexy about it. There is nothing thrilling about it. It is a stressful undertaking that ultimately proves to be unworth it. It proves to not be worth the risk that was taken. And so I think one of the things, and again, I don't know if this is going to answer the question sufficiently. I think that, as both parties are taking accountability, I think that there is, hope where there is a willingness to be accountable on the offending party, where there is a willingness to seek help, where there is a willingness to recommit to the marriage. And what I mean when I say this is there are times where people won't really do this until certain consequences have begun to set in. But this decision has to be independent of consequences. And sometimes it takes people kind of feeling a certain hurt to kind of begin to turn from certain things. But I think that there's just got to be an accountability. There's got to be an acknowledgement. And especially for the offending party, there's got to be a willingness to embrace a very lengthy road to rebuilding trust.
Yeah,
like trust is a fragile thing. And see, and it's not to kind of have anybody walking around weighed down by guilt and shame. If you have confessed to God, you can experience his grace in heaven. But there is a rebuild that is going to go beyond a prayer and a recommitment or a rededication vow service. There is a long road to recovery that the offending party has to be willing to embrace. You're going to have to go out of your way to affirm, to reassure a broken and hurting partner who's willing to be open. But in terms of to the offending party, again, I think the key is that person taking accountability, ownership. Are they willing to seek help? Are they willing to recommit themselves spiritually to God and to recommit the union spiritually as well? So that those things that perhaps was a blip, those things don't become a trend.
Yeah, I was gonna say too. You can't be like trying to be on the men's and keeping tab. Like, well, here's what I've been trying to do. Remember, you're the one that kind of jammed up, and not that grace is not being extended. It's being extended by the mere fact that I'm still in the relationship and I'm trying to work with you. But you don't get a chance to start listing. Here's what I've been doing to try to get back into good graces.
Yeah, this is such a touchy subject, and I think it has broad relevance. We have someone in the chat who has asked whether this conversation is for married only. They are single, and I would say to that person that we do have some questions for the panelists about those who are single but maybe preparing for marriage. But even if you're not, I think listening to this conversation about marriage can be something that you equip yourself with in terms of the knowledge and the tools to think about, so that when that day comes that you're entering into or thinking about getting into a relationship, you will already kind of had some of that in. I think it's valuable for singles to still be here for this conversation as well.
And Kim, can I jump in on the tail end of that real quick? And I hate to get on and just completely start talking way too much, but like one of the things, the enemy does, he's playing the long game. Like we're playing checkers, he's playing chess. And so a lot of times when we talk about infidelity and adultery, there are times where that does not start after you say I do.
Yes.
Right.
There are many instances where it was simply a carry over from courtship and engagement. And so there are times where we think, man, that getting married is going to solve the problem, or if we just commit ourselves is going to solve the problem. I just think that there are certain things, and I'm just saying this to our, to those who are dating and contemplating and praying about it. I think that when traits of unfaithfulness, and this is not an absolute, this is not 100%, but I think that there are times where God allows us to see certain things. People struggle with boundaries or the need to be affirmed constantly. When those things kind of show up in a courtship, that's God trying to kind of help you know that, maybe you need to kind of at least pause, be very prayerful before you continue, because a lot of time adultery does not commence after wedding. It continues. It just is something that's just never ceased.
To piggyback on that, Pastor, I would imagine also just if you're living a promiscuous lifestyle as a single person, and then suddenly you get married and you have to only be with one person, right? So you're almost setting yourself up for failure if you've lived a life of promiscuity, and then all of a sudden you get married, you're going to be, I feel like that kind of you're setting yourself up for failure at that point, or the possibility or risk of not being able to be faithful to your spouse. So yeah, I think that's a really important point that should be made.
I think in most cases, because Pastor Snell said something very important, and this is good for I think for singles as well as individuals who are married, but I guess more along the lines of single. There are flags that are often ignored. It's kind of rare. Like I asked this question to even some of the married individuals that it didn't work out or it's looking bad. Did God tell you to marry this person? So this is when they were single, and overwhelming in the 90s or something, it was a clear no. Okay, when there was someone who was promiscuous, or who was cheating on them all the time. And so I think that it's important, whether you're married and things like that, if someone is cheating on you, to evaluate kind of where you stand as far as your own security. It's not your fault that this is happening, okay? But sometimes when these things are prevalent, because it happens like this in relationships with many of us. Like we get out of one relationship and we get into another one. We think we got rid of this knucklehead and we right back with somebody that's exactly like them. And so there's a reason behind it. I don't want to overtalk on that, but a lot of times when we're attracting individuals like this, we have to start doing evaluation of what our esteem is like. Do we know who we are? What is our confidence level like? Are we codependent? You know what I'm saying? Are we accepting emotional abuse? Like even some of the married people that are sticking and hanging in there with the cheating spouse. It doesn't mean that if you're going to hang in there that you have to be emotionally abused, that you have to be physically abused, that you have to do all these things that's not necessary for you to do, that you're not even happy with doing. Why are you doing all that stuff? Is God telling you to do that? Okay. And so I just kind of wanted to hit on that.
Oh, very good, Troy. And I really appreciate you making those points. Those are very good points. There's some buzzwords that we tend to stray away from. Infidelity is one, obviously. We just unpacked that a little bit.
Yep.
Pornography is another one we haven't talked about. I haven't seen that come up in the chat. Troy and I were in a men's group a while ago, and that was prevalent throughout our group. I'm talking, healthy marriages, but gentlemen are struggling with these types of things. That, and I see a lot of people in chat saying that we need this, Pastor. This needs to continue. Let's do it again. And I want to ask this question to everyone on here. I actually want to ask this to the ladies, but gentlemen, I want you to chime in as well. What do you know now? We have collectively over probably close to 200 years of marriage between the five of us. What do you know now? What do you know now that you wish you knew then before you got married? What kind of advice could you give to the singles? What kind of advice could you give to those contemplating or those that are early in their marriage? I want to start with the ladies. I want to hear if any ladies would speak first.
I think when people got married, especially in the day when we got married, you were at a certain age and then you're supposed to be getting married. And people did not put a lot of emphasis on premarital counseling. They did not put a lot of emphasis on people's backgrounds. The idea was if you belong to the same church, basically, maybe had the same education, that you're going to be compatible. And not a lot of emphasis that when couples get together, their backgrounds make a very big difference in their relationship. And so I guess the thing that I would say that it's really important to really understand that you're not just marrying a person, you're marrying the entire family, you're marrying the history of that family. And a lot of times that's ignored.
Yep.
You just say, okay, this is a nice person and we're compatible, but you really are marrying into a family. You're marrying into a person with a history. And for those who get married later in life, they come with a lot of history that a person needs to know about before they get married.
That's good.
Anyone else?
I would say one of the things I wish I knew and really have plugged into was just having and finding joy in God myself and not putting the weight on him to make me happy. Not coming into the relationship like, oh, he didn't tell me I was beautiful today, so I'm blown today. I'm just not going to have a good day. But learning like marriage, children, relationships, friendship, that's the icing on the cake. But Jesus is the cake. Like Jesus is the main meat of who I am. And he gives me purpose. He gives me joy. And I think I kind of came into the relationship like putting a lot of weight on him to make me happy, to make me feel beautiful, to make me. But now I don't have to hear that. I'm like, God already told me this morning who I am. And I can now pour from a more full cup because I am, making sure that God is my source, which is something you talked about this morning. Marriages are so much more able to thrive when we're both plugged in,
You'll go ahead, Kim. You go. I go after you.
I think one thing I wish I knew, and I'm learning it now and having to remind myself often, is that Van is not a mind reader. Like, even if I tell him something once or, like he's not going to get, so what I need, I must be willing to communicate, and so many times we go into relationships and we have these expectations that he's going to be romantic or that he's going to bring gifts or he's going to do all these things. And they're not going to know what buttons to push for you except you communicate it. So I wish I knew 20 years ago that I didn't say that.
That's a good one.
That's good. That's good.
I have to say something.
To say that I wish that I knew how hard this ministry called marriage is.
Yeah.
Because it is hard. I mean, because what Hallmark and Lifetime show you is not the truth. But one of the biggest things is that I wish that earlier on that I would see Troya as God's son. I think I failed to do that. I saw him. I mean, we're all sinners saved by grace. I can easily pick out the negative, the bad things about him, but he's still God's child, and I should treat him like he's God's child.
Yes.
So that's something that I've been intentional about over the years, but earlier on, I just thought he was Satan's son.
Oh God! Real out here.
Okay, so we are almost out of time, guys. But I wanna quickly piggyback on that, segue from that real quick, because we began with this idea that marriage is hard, right? And we just talked about all the hard things. Can we very quickly, though, talk about why we should get married? Like, what is great about marriage, right? Because there's some single people on here who are like, marriage is hard and all this stuff y'all talking about, maybe I don't need to do this, right? So why should people get married? What is good about marriage in spite of the hard?
I would say the growth. So real quick, I share just growing as individuals. Like I am a better person because of my spouse. And so when Troy and I was dating, I wasn't licensed in the field of social work, and we were dating, but he was always pushing me, you need to get licensed, Chantel, you need to get licensed. And that was one of his first gifts to me, was a book called Who Moved My Cheese. I'm sure y'all probably familiar with that book. And then he put money in there for me to get my material to study for my test. And so I knew right there, like, this guy really wants me to be great in life, you know. And so I would say one of the reasons to get married is that you are going to grow as an individual. You know, your spouse builds you up, you build him up, and you both become better people. So that I would say to definitely that you would definitely grow from it.
Beautiful.
Yeah, I think the pastor said it today. He said marriage was not to make you happy, but it might make you holy. And it could get you into heaven, and two are better than one. And you know, God said himself, it's not good for man to be alone. And might not have been talking about other men, but he definitely was talking about Calvin.
Amen. Amen. I found that.
Yeah,
oh, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I was just that with having that purpose of marriage, and there's a lot of things that that goes into that other person is not making you happy, but we do want to be respected. We do want to be affirmed, someone to comfort us, and all the other intimate emotional needs that people have that the spouse helps to fulfill. But they're doing it with each other. And as someone said before, I think it was Kim, that it's not 50-50, but 100-100.
Yes. Yes. Pastor Van Young, go ahead.
No, I was going to say, I think a reason to get married is to show a clear picture of who Christ really is. Because the two becoming one is a gorgeous picture, a handsome picture of what Christ desires to be with us, to be that close to us. And I just think that, you know, when you have committed yourself to walking with someone, praying with someone, laughing with someone, crying, this person becomes your ride or die. You know what I'm saying? You know, it just reaffirms all the things that Christ desires to have with us, those kind of relationships he desires to have with us. And he allows us to play it out through marriage. And it's just a reminder, just like you all are doing what you're doing together, I want to do that with you as well.
Beautiful, beautiful. That's the go ahead, Troy.
I just have to say, I mean, I love being married. I love being married. I don't ever want to be single again. So we started off with some hardcore stuff about marriage, but let's not get it twisted. You know, look at the Ropers; they just out chilling on the resort. You know what I'm saying? You get to do stuff like that, and whatever happens.
Sure, we're not at a resort.
You know what I'm saying?
Resort. We're at a marriage retreat.
A marriage retreat. You know what I'm saying? You're doing things together. You know what I'm saying? Thank you, man. I mean, friend, lover, you know what I'm saying? Business partner, confidant. We're in ministry. This right here, we're doing stuff. We love helping people. This is what we get to do together. And so that's kind of the foundation. Like if you are with somebody right now and you're single and y'all are dating and you are noticing that your relationship with them is not bringing you closer to Christ, then you probably need to end it right away. Right away. Because it's all about this stuff what y'all seeing. I've looked after most of all these people and seen them grow and seen them being married, model. This is what it's about. And so we got to take notes of the people whose marriages are working. We get so caught up in Hollywood. And if you think about these folks that they got this money and stuff, they don't stay married. You feel
Troy, you're hitting something. Pastor Snell said it a couple weeks ago, and it hit me and Kim pretty hard. When we lost Claude Thomas a few months ago, that really hurt because growing up for me, Troy, and those of us that grew up in the church, the Thomases were the example, right? The Thomases, and then after the Thomases were the Matthews. After Thomases moved on, and now the Matthews here are holding the mantle. But who's coming behind the Matthews? It has to be us. It has to be us younger folks. So it's not just about our relationship with Christ. That's important. But also our kids and young people in the church are watching us like we watched others. And so when Kim and I talked about that, we said, you know what, we have an obligation to give back, just like Claude Thomas, just like Joe Thomas,
Right.
just like Calvin, just like Belvia Matthews. That's the reality of it to me.
Yeah.
Very important.
Very important, and it segues perfectly into the next question. As you said, Pastor Snell mentioned before, the importance of the church family and our obligation to one another within the church as a body of Christ. So I have two final questions for you all, and the first one is to those of you who are leaders in the church. So Pastor Snell, Van Dion, but even the Matthews and Wises, I think we can't discount the leadership role that we have because people are looking at us. So my question in particular is, what unique challenges do you see for those of you who are out front, who are really on that platform and that stage, and people are looking at you? What challenges has that had on your marriage, and how have you managed that? Right, because we want to be examples, but sometimes that's a lot of pressure. That's a lot that we have to carry, and it can maybe put a certain pressure on the marriage itself. So that's question one. And then I want to segue from that question to what can the church do to help marriages that may be challenged? What is there a role that we as a church family can play as it comes to this topic of marriage?
Yeah, I think that's a great question. I think for us, the one thing, I guess if I could maybe frame it this way, is just to say, we want to just try to make sure that our marriage publicly was never a performance or an act, so that the responsibilities and the people that look, if you make the needed investment behind closed doors, then you can kind of live somewhat impervious of kind of what people think or how they perceive the outside. Because what I've always wanted was simply my public ministry to be an outgrowth kind of a strong home foundation. And so what happens is, ultimately it's interesting because there are times, especially like even when I'm preaching on stuff like today, there's a part of the congregation, they're watching me with one eye, but then they're looking at her with the other eye.
Yeah.
And it's amazing because they're trying to discern, is this credible? And her countenance essentially says it all.
Right.
So essentially, man, her smile and her joyfulness is really, for me, that's the affirmation, kind of our ministry. So again, it's not something we have to turn on and off. We just believe if we do the work behind closed doors, what you see, the good, bad, and maybe some of the ugly, we can live with that, because we never really wanted it to be a performance. But one of the things that we wanted to do, and you kind of see this with what we're doing with the Family-ish series, some things we've done earlier in this year, is we want to create a climate. And when I met with the Matthews earlier this year, we want to create a climate both spiritually and through the steady equipping of both singles and our married couples, that really we give them every possible opportunity and advantage, every life hack, so that marriage is not just something that you endure, but it's something that is able to thrive. And I think that every church needs to be intentional about pouring into both singles and into the families of the church, because strong families make strong churches, and that makes us even more impactful and relevant in the community. It's crazy because even when families split, there is a deleterious effect on the church, because either one or both parts of those family members, one or both, are probably going to leave the church. And there is a cumulative toll that it takes. So hopefully that answered the question. But the main thing is not really so much kind of trying to kind of pose for the camera. Right. Just live real principle behind closed doors, and let the public ministry be an outgrowth of a strong home foundation.
Yeah, Kim, my daughter said, "Dad, your Adventist famous." She's like, "You're not a real celebrity. You just Adventist famous." Because of the virtue of my responsibilities and job. And one of the things that I don't have to work at is how I feel about Kim and Caitlin. It's pretty overt. And one lady came up to me to just affirm what Snell is saying, and she said the whole time you were preaching. She said, I could hear you, but I watched your wife the entire sermon. She said, the only reason why I'm coming to you is because I know you got to be a man of God. Because she was shaking her head and she was making sounds and smiling. And I was saying to myself, I'm so glad this Sabbath was a good Sabbath.
You didn't have that fight on the way to church.
Hey, like Everett said, those Sabbath morning, man, this was a good Sabbath. We've been an open book. I had members that would just ride by my house just to kind of see what was going on. I had to finally say, hey, listen, you guys can actually come by. We're good. We have, what you see publicly is exactly what you're going to see when you come into our home. And I think that being authentic and you don't have to, when you have married the person God has given you, you don't have to fake it. You don't have to walk around with your head down. I was telling some single people, if you can't hold hands publicly, don't be trying to hold my hand privately. You know what I'm saying? Like we got to be down for that. This is who God has designed for me, and publicly, I don't mind stating that. I probably stated too much, but it is what it is. And we don't try to hide, and we welcome others to be a part of the journey with us. And I think what I would say to those who are contemplating, ask yourself, is this who God has called me to be with from now until eternity? And if you cannot answer that question truthfully and authentically, it's probably time to cut loose.
That's good.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Oh, just really quickly. I just think that, especially in ministry, but any marriage, you can't compare. You cannot say, well, this didn't work for them or this works for them. So I remember someone came to me and said, your husband travels, once a month. I couldn't do that. Like I couldn't leave, my family and travel. And I was like, okay, well, that's why you're not called to do that.
Come on.
I'm just like,
Everybody ain't called.
Right. I'm just like, if that's your station to just be an at-home minister, then do that. But God has equipped each of us with what we need to carry the load that we're bearing. And so I've had to get it, because at first I did feel bad. And I was just like, man, But then I was just like, no, we've all been given what we need, and God has given me a personality. I'm kind of an introvert, so I enjoy those little weekend breaks. And I'm like, okay.
Y'all heard that. She's glad we're gone. I come back, man. I'm seeing massage bills on the credit card.
Absence makes the heart grow fonder, Pastor.
About what doesn't work for you, what doesn't, do what works for you. So sometimes during the week, me and the kids will go, just this week, he was like, I got 1 hour, not gonna make it home for dinner. Let's meet at Bridge Street, family time. Let's do an hour where we just go out to eat and just have a family moment. And so we have found ways to make our family dynamic work, our marriage work, that may not look like what works for you.
Right. Yes.
Let's not compare. Make it work for you. Do what works for you.
Yeah.
This marriage conversation is always a hot topic, and there's so much that we can and should discuss, but we just can't get to it all. There are so many comments and questions that are going into the chat. I'm going to assure all of you that the panelists will go back. I'm putting y'all on the spot now. Y'all are going to go back through some of these comments and questions and respond to them after today's show, because we just can't get to all of it. But this conversation has been so rich and so valuable. Pastor Snell, I would love it if we could do another one like this sometime soon, because I think it is very needed. Maybe we can do this on a regular basis, because I think there's so many other things that we could have dug into that we just did not have time. But with that said, I'm going to hand it to you now to kind of wrap up, and let's see what we can share with those who are watching as far as what's coming next.
So again, I want to encourage you all to just continue hanging with us. We're going to be in this series entitled Family-ish through November the 19th. So we've got 3 amazing weeks ahead. where each Sabbath morning we're going to be dealing with a various aspect of family and relationship life. And if you've been with us these first 2 weeks, one of the things that you've noticed is that it's not just about married couples. We're dealing with issues of parenting. We're dealing with single life. In the coming weeks, we'll be dealing with loss. And so I want to just encourage you to know that we're trying to have meaningful conversations, not just around the ideal of family, but around the realities that our families are facing. And so I want to encourage you to join us each Sabbath morning, 11 o'clock Central Standard Time on the Oakwood University Church YouTube page or the Breath of Life YouTube page. And then each Sabbath afternoon, I want you to know we're going to be doing at least 3 more of these. We're going to have our family-ish table talk. And then those of you who are just looking to have some additional things to supplement on our Breath of Life podcast, Breathe, we're continuing this family-ish conversation. Let me tell you some of the things that are coming up, like even coming this Monday. We have Miss Camille Williams, who wrote a great book on overcoming divorce and 10 spiritual lessons that she learned. She's going to be talking to those who have had to maneuver the journey of divorce. My great friend, one of my fathers in ministry, Cleveland Murphy Wilson, going to be talking about the issue of love and loss for those who are widows and those are widowers who suffered loss and how we manage that terrain spiritually. There's a single ladies panel. There's a single males panel. And so, this theme of family-ish is going to continue each and every Sabbath. And then if you want some additional meaningful conversation and dialogue, just check out our Breath of Life podcast, Breathe, co-hosted between myself and David Person. So again, we're going to be here through November the 19th. I want you to know it's going to be a blessed time. It's going to be a great time in the Lord Jesus Christ. And then I want to just remind you that coming up on Thanksgiving Thursday, we're excited. I'm not sure if we have the promo for this, but we're going to be hosting our new Thanksgiving special. It is entitled The Gratitude Project. Our theme for this year is in everything, give thanks. We talked about it in the Praise Cafe. For many people, the holidays, it's a dark season. We've suffered loss in the course of the year. Many folk don't feel like they even have a reason to give thanks. Giving thanks feels like a forced activity. But our theme this year is in everything, give thanks. So we've got amazing testimonies. Both me and the First Lady, Gianna's on the project with us. She's going to be giving some messages along with me. Going to be blessed with the musical ministry of Jonathan McReynolds, our very own John Starter, and First Lady Karen Clark Sheard. Listen, I need you to know we finished the taping a few weeks back. Man, it is going to be epic. You will only be able to see this at our Breath of Life YouTube page or Breath of Life app. So I want to encourage you, like right now, if you're on YouTube right now, and I know most of us, I think I looked a little while ago, about 1,200 of you are watching us on the Oakwood University Church Breath of YouTube platform. Just take a minute. Go to the Breath of Life ministry and subscribe so that you'll already begin to getting the notifications when we begin to air that live. The other thing about the Gratitude Project, it's not just a program. Starting on November the 13th, we're going to be having 10 days of gratitude. Well, each and every morning, man, we're going to be coming online early in the morning. We're going to be giving reasons for you to give thanks. And then what we're going to do is we're going to publish a PDF where you'll be able to get it on our Breath of Life website and our Oakwood University Church website, where each day you'll get the theme of gratitude. There'll be a prayer of gratitude, a scripture of gratitude. And what we're trying to do, man, is just detonate, man, a chain reaction of gratitude and praise. Listen, Thanksgiving is not a holiday. It's a lifestyle for the believer. That's why the Bible says, I'll bless the Lord at all times, and his praise shall continually be in my mouth. So I want to encourage you to join us for the Gratitude Project, kicking off November the 23rd, going straight for 10 days, and then it will culminate on November the 24th as we stream live on our YouTube page. This year, you don't have to look for it. You don't have to check your local listings. It's going to be right there on the Breath of Life YouTube page, the Gratitude Project. I promise you that you're going to be richly blessed while you're preparing for the meal. Come on, stop by and get some spiritual food. You're going to be richly, richly, richly blessed. And so I think those are the main things I got. Gianna, anything you want the people to know? Any final words?
I think you covered it all. Babe.
Just about cut it off. All right. And then just each Wednesday night, check us out as we continue our series entitled God is Greater. And so I just want to thank our host, Dr. Roper, the Ropers, Dr. and Dr. Roper. They're on a retreat, but we so appreciate their commitment to coming on and taking a break and pausing from something that should be infilling them so that they can pour into us. And I'm thankful for the Wise family, the Griffin family, and the Matthews family, the contributions that they made. And we thank you for just taking time out of your schedule to join us each Sabbath morning and each Sabbath afternoon. We pray that what you have received is helpful, that it's ministering to you where you are. And we just ask that you would just do us one last favor, pray. And we just ask that you would be a digital disciple. Listen, if the last 2 weeks' messages have helped you, just go to the YouTube page, go to Facebook, copy the link, send it to someone, hit the share button. I need you, man, to help us spread this message, as Ellen White says, like the leaves of autumn, that this healing would overflow. And see, some of us, we only send it to our church friends, our Adventist friends. No, I need you to send it to your unchurched friends. Send it to folk who don't know God, that are not introduced to these principles. We know that they'll be richly blessed as well. And share the discussion. Not everybody's a sermon person, but man, a non-threatening dialogue where folk are just talking about real issues in real time, that will be equally impactful to them.
Absolutely.
So listen, God bless you. First Lady, you want to pray for us as we close?
Absolutely. God, we thank you so much for this opportunity to come together and talk and unpack and be real. Lord, we thank you for all of the couples here who were transparent and honest about what our needs are and what our needs are of you. But God, we give you glory that you are able to make even marriage and the ups and downs of this journey, you are able to make all things beautiful. And so we thank you that we have the opportunity to be in this space. And we just ask that you would bless each and every person who tuned in, whether single, whether widowed, divorced, married, Lord. You know all of the different stages of life we're in. I pray, God, that you would breathe life into each marriage, into each single, and into each person who is walking through some difficult spaces. Lord, we know that you are able to be the God of everything and all the things that we're going through. So we praise you in advance for what you're going to do. Bless us and keep us until we meet again next week. In your name I pray. Amen.
Amen. Amen. God bless you. You will see you this week.
Bye.
Happy